So this is pretty hilarious and pretty interesting from a persuasion standpoint. I'm gonna do my best to sound neutral. I'm gonna do my best to sound like I don't really have a horse in the race. Well, I really don't. And I'm also gonna do my best to sound like I'm describing things without emotion. But it's pretty difficult to do so. Now, I'm gonna take a swing and a dig at the politicians. I love doing that because politicians, in my opinion, are liars. All they do is lie all the time, every single day. My hypothesis. Why can't I say hypothesis? My hypothesis is that there are no honest politicians out there. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is this. So, in my country, there's a current government coalition consisting of a large party, the Labour Party, and some small, insignificant environmentalist, communist, and socialist parties. They're red and green, meaning they're red as in communist or socialist, and they're green as in environmentalist. As it so happens, I appear to be wearing green. And no, I'm not affiliated with the environmentalist parties. Anyway, so these parties are currently quarreling and arguing over pump prices, petrol prices, amongst other things. Recently, right before the Easter holidays took place, there was a giant uproar because petrol prices were soaring because of the war in the Middle East. And here's the curious case. About half of the pump prices are just fees to the government. That's pretty crazy. So if the government didn't profit off of the pump prices, they'd be half of what they are today. That's insane. So several parties proposed cuts, government cuts, and of course there was a big discussion about that. The current incumbent, the current incumbent largest government party didn't want to do it because they thought that was a bad idea. But some of their collaborators, some of the smaller parties in that government coalition actually sided with the opposition and essentially forced the government to cut the prices, which was good. Now they're all bickering and arguing, and it's like watching kids in a sandbox. Kids in a sandbox, if they don't get the toy they want, they don't get to play in the part of the sandbox that they want. They don't get enough sand to build a sandcastle. All of those kinds of things. Well, that's essentially what's happening now. You're watching these adult people who complain and vent and moan and bitch, and they point fingers at each other, and they say, "You violated our deal. You betrayed us. You went behind our backs." And they don't understand that in the eyes of the public, they look so weak. They look so frail. This is not the way to rule a country. This is not the way to appear strong. If they had their arguments behind closed doors and refused to vent their frustrations to the press and appeared unified, then they would have persuaded way more people to believe in them. But that's not happening because they're all taking the bait. As soon as the journalists call, they pick up the phone and they start venting and moaning and complaining and pointing fingers at every single other party but their own. And then they're wondering why they probably will lose the upcoming midterms elections which are going to happen next year. And for sure, if this continues, the next parliamentary elections. Because, they're acting literally like kids in a sandbox. And that's not the way to persuade people. That's certainly not the way to persuade people to follow you if you want to appear strong and like a leader. This is not a head of state. These are small children pretending that they can blame the other children, and so that they can get away with their case, because they all have their own unique positions and cases and pork that they need to implement in the government budget. Well, long story short, I'm not going to bother you with politics because it's all horseshit. But the point is this about persuasion. If you want to appear strong and you have a government coalition, you can't be pointing fingers against each other. You need to all point fingers at the opposition together as a unit. And with that being said, that was the persuasion lesson of this video. If you want to learn more about persuasion, well, then get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description, wherever you're watching and or listening to this, and I'll see you there.